evening. Uh, Excited to be here. Uh, I mean, Joining a new development team is something I've done several times, and it's really a privilege to have to talk about that. Uh, Actually, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to product leadership and managing development teams. However, I will only be talking about my experiences, and I'll be sharing tips and hacks from my experiences over this call. Uh, I'll be talking about some of the things that I've done, right? Everything I'll be talking about are things that I've done and things that work for me, right? If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comment section, right? And when we can done, we can go through all the questions one by one. All right. Before we start, I would like to tell you a few things about myself. Um, I've been a product manager for about 9 years. I was lucky. My uncle, one of my uncle was a software developer. So when I finished high school, I started working to him. Uh, can you see me? I saw a comment that I'm far from the PC. Uh, can anyone else see me?
Not yet. Okay, yes. No, I guess it's my network.
Oh,
Okay,
okay. But can you hear me?
okay. Yes, we can see you and we can hear
Okay.
you. Please write on.
Okay. Here's someone saying that the quality is not okay. Uh, Sophia, can you confirm that?
It's a bit how would I say? I think somebody said
Okay.
foggy, so it's not really clear.
Okay. Let me switch my location then. Hold on. Hello. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, I think it's clear now. It's clearer now.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. So before we start, I would like to say a few things about myself. I have about 9 years of product experience. I was lucky I started very early. My uncle owns a software development company. So when I finished school, I just went to him and started working with him. And that was when started my career. And throughout my time in uni, I was already working as a product manager. I've led several development teams, from Expound to Transion to Patricia to OP. Currently, I am at Mata. Um, Mata is a marketplace for raw materials and chemicals. We are focused on transforming the supply chain, for uh, that particular market, right? We also provide, financing to manufacturers and also buyers of raw materials too as well. And on the other side too, because of my experience in banking, I've been working for about 2 years in an area called core banking, where we build infrastructure for banks and fintechs too as well. So for the purpose of today's call, I have broken down what we are going to be talking about to like 3 different parts. However, I'm starting with an introduction where I talk about what a development team is, right, and what that structure looks like, right. Then part of what we're going to be talking about, deals with how to build trust, right, with a new team as a product manager. The second part deals with how to manage communication and how to communicate with the development team. And the last part mainly focuses on leading and managing development teams. What are the hacks? What are the tips? And what are the things I've learned so far from my experiences regarding this? So moving ahead, as I mentioned, we like to align on what a development team looks like. Sometimes you have all these people in the development team. Sometimes you have less, and sometimes you have even more, right? It consists of a backend engineer, a front-end engineer. Sometimes you have DevOps engineers, and sometimes you have site reliability engineers, right? And sometimes you have designers too as well, right? You can have a UI designer and not have a UX designer, right? You can have a UI designer and also a UX designer, or a combination of both. And leading this engineering-based team, right? You always have like maybe a tech lead or an engineering manager, or also the head of engineering. So diving deep into the first part, I would like to ask the first question, right? And the first question is that we want to answer, right? Is how do we build trust, with a new team as a product manager, right? Trust is important, right? In all human relationship, right? It's like a fundamental social contract, right? And so when a development team trusts the product manager, right, it means that they respect you, and it also means that you can influence them, right? And what that means is trust is not just trust, right? Trust means respect, right? And trust means influence, right? So this question can be phrased in 3 ways, right? It can be how do you build trust? It can also be how do you build respect, right? And it can also be how do you influence your development team, right? But I know we have in our mind right now. I mean, why are we talking about trust? Why are we talking about respect, right? My job is, I'm a product manager, right? I'm just here to get this done, right? I would like to know how many of us here have developers and engineers as friends? Do I have anybody here that have developers and engineers as friends? By the show of hands. Great. And have you heard these engineers product managers before, right? What I've learned so far is that to most engineers, product managers are like, a pain in the ass, right? I don't completely blame them, right? These stereotypes came from their experiences, of bad product managers. Yeah. And you're wondering, what do you mean by bad product managers? Yes, they are bad product managers. But fortunately, this conversation is not about bad product managers, so I will not go too far into that. So yeah, as a new PM in a development team, you are already at a disadvantage, right? Because you are meeting an engineering team, you are meeting developers who think product managers are in their team to complicate their life, and it also complicates, their work too as well. So getting your engineers to trust you, right, is going to be your first challenge. And that is why this is very, very important. And how do you do this, right? The first thing is when you come in, right? You have to be a problem solver from day one, right? I know, right? You want to solve problems for the customers, you want to build value for the business, but that is not your focus on day one, right? What you want to do is to be a problem solver for your team from day one. It is tempting to, jump on problems immediately you come in, right? But don't, please. During your first stand-up call, I would advise that you listen to team members' blockers, right? Typical example would be, one engineer talking about how he's working on a particular feature, but he needs more requirements from a stakeholder or from someone in the company, or he has a blocker that someone is blocking him. That is your chance to step in and say, hey, let me handle that for you. Let me reach out to this person. Let me talk to this person, and let me get what you are going to need for you. And another example is, an engineer, talking about what they are integrating. Maybe they are using a third-party developer, and they have challenges understanding documentation, right? You can come in and say, hey, I know these guys, right? Oh, I can reach out to someone here to solve this problem for you, right? The goal is to solve problems for them, right? Listen to what they're saying, listen to what they're complaining about, right? If it doesn't happen on the first call, look forward to the second call, right? For me, it has always worked, right? Because by doing this, I am systematically, right, changing the perspectives, right, of my development team from a product manager being someone that complicates their life to someone that solves problem for them, right? And what you are doing is you are gradually winning the trust. I remember what I said about trust, not just being trust. Trust is also influence, right? You are also, influencing them. You are getting influence, right? And you are also gaining respect, right? It is very natural for me to respect someone who solves problem for me, right? And engineers, developers are human beings too as well, right? If this is something that I've been complaining for about like a week, right, and it has not been done, and you come in first day, second day, you solve the problem for them. Naturally, you are tilting their mind, right, from where they were, right, where they think that product managers are, complicated and assholes and all that, to the product manager that solves problem for them. The next thing, apart from solving problem for them, is actually knowing them. One of the most interesting things about development team or a development team is the diversity of characters, right? And as a new product manager, you need to be intentional about knowing who your team members are, right? You need to know what they can do. You need to know their limitations, both as individuals and also as a team, right? My trick to doing this is on day one, when I meet them, after introducing myself, I tell them about scheduling the one-on-one call with them. If I have 10 engineers on the team, my first assignment is to schedule one-on-one calls with them, right? This is apart from trying to listen to what they're saying and trying to make judgments about who they are and make conclusions about their skill sets, right? And also about what they can do too as well, right? This is different from that, right? So the goal of the one-on-one call, right, is to converse, right? And on these calls, you are discussing their career, their profession, and also their personal life, right? You want to show a bit of interest, right? You want to be patronizing, trust me, right? You want to show a bit of interest you want to be patronizing, and you also want to find a common ground, right? You're talking to an engineer. Here's what my questions look like, right? Hey, it's really nice to join you guys. This is me. This is who I am. This is what I've been doing. This is why I'm here. And this is what I love about you guys have been doing so far, right? Tell me about yourself. Before you joined this company, what were you doing? Where are you coming from, right? Where do you live? Which city do you live in? How is the city? Are you enjoying the place? How long have you been there, right? And knowing these things is going to reflect on how you communicate with them, how you relate with them, and how you manage them, right? And trust me, how you manage them influences their trust in you, right? Everybody wants to be heard, everybody wants to be known, right? So it is very natural. This is even not just something that is limited to development team, right? Any new environment you find yourself in, right? I mean, one of your first focus should be knowing who is in that environment and finding the common ground, right? In a period of conversation, in my period, in the process of talking to them, I can ask them, hey, what team do you support? Manchester United. Oh, I'm also a Manchester United fan. We move from work and talk about that, right? The good thing about that is at that particular point that you are with that team, you have that opportunity to talk about non-professional things because you have not started getting your hands dirty yet, right? You can't have that conversation in the middle of a sprint, right? About football, about life, right? But because you just joined, right? You're just trying to see how things are going, right? It sets the right environments, right, for you to have that conversation, right? And trust me, if you miss on getting to know your team, right, during this period, it might be very difficult for you to get to know them later. And what that means is that it might be very difficult for you, to be able to influence them and for you to be able to gain their trust as well. Another example of, why this is important, right, especially the professional and the skill set side is look at a scenario where you have 3 backend engineers on your team, right? And maybe after your first month, you have already missed on, trying to know their skill sets, trying to know their experience, right? And 1 month into your journey, right, there is a very complex problem, right? However, in your team, out of the 3 developers, you have 2 senior developers and 1 junior developer. Because you have missed on trying to know who is strong and who is still developing, you assign, this complex task to the junior developer who is not even familiar with the code base, right? You might be challenging the junior developer, right? But then what you are communicating to the rest of the team, especially when the junior developer cannot solve the problem, is that you do not know their strengths. You don't know, who is who, and you don't know who can do what, right? And that is how you gradually lose influence and lose their trust. So you don't want to miss on that. The next part talks about your products, your customers, and your domain. Trust me, as a product manager, right, your first month should be focused on knowing these 3 things, right? I have a personal rule, right? Which is not something that happens in the beginning, right? It is something that I consequently work on, right? Not just when I'm joining a new team, right? And that rule is this: no one should know my products or my customers more than me, right? It is very important, especially when you are dealing with engineers, right? You want to let them know, you want to communicate that you know what you're saying, right? There's one thing for sure. Engineers respect product managers who know what they are talking about, right? They respect that, right? No matter how egoistic the engineer is, no matter the character complexity, right? When you are talking about something, right, they know that, oh yeah, this guy knows what he's saying, right? And unconsciously, they trust you, right? They are trusting you, right? They are respecting you unconsciously, right? Even if they are not doing that consciously, they are respecting you, right? You know, the rule of thumb is, you know, don't just jump into things, right? When you go into a new product team, right? Whether you are just starting a new product or it's an existing team, right? You know, take your time to know your customers. Look at the data. Look at the customer insights. Look at your product analytics. Understand your customers, right? When I joined Mata, right, one of the first things I did was to join the sales team to go out and interface with our customers, right? Our customers are offline businessmen, right? People who use raw materials to produce and to manufacture, right? I find this closest salesperson to the area that I reside in, and I say, hey, man, tomorrow I'm with you, right? I want to talk to existing customers, and I want to talk to new customers that we are trying to bring in, right? I want to know what their concerns are. I want to know what defines, you know, success for them, right? For this value that we are offering them, right? And it is not a one-time thing, right? It's something that I do periodically, right? I'm already at a disadvantage because the sales team talk to my customers more than me, right? So because I know that, and I know that I have to be an expert, right, on my customer, I join forces with them to learn and to know my customer, right? So it is a very important thing. As I said, everybody respects someone who knows what they're talking about. And that is something that you want to portray when you join a new development team. Going ahead, okay, you've learned about your team, you've learned about the customers. Where do you start working? What do you do? You might be tempted, you know, to do a redesigning of the UX. You know, hey, this UX is not good. Before I joined, I already know that this UX is not good. I'm coming in, I want to change the UX. That temptation can be there. And funny enough, you might be right. You might be tempted, you know, to change a major part of your product, right? Or bring in a major feature, right? But please do not start with that, right? This is what I've always done, right? This is what I've always done, and it has always worked for me, right? It is starting with low hanging fruits, right? I know all of us know the prioritization matrix, right? We know what we call quick wins, right? For those who do not know, quick wins are, you know, tasks that requires minimum efforts, right? But has huge impact on your customers, your products, or your business, right? And the impact can be either negative or positive, right? An example of a negative impact is if you don't do something, how it will affect your customers, right? Focus on quick wins, right? A good example of a quick win would be after looking at your data, you realize that, hey, customers are not converting from one page to another, right? And an example solution to that would maybe let's change the CTA, you know, to convert customers, or let's change the button, right? Focus on something that you are 100% sure, right? Do not experiment. Do not make decisions based off best guesses, right? It is a very crucial thing. Your first task, the first thing you are getting done, right, is going to be a quick win, right? Solving small problems, right? Apart from how it affects your development team, also gives you confidence, right? As a product manager, right? And apart from that, it demonstrates to everyone that you know what you are doing. You always want to start with small problems, right? You don't want to bring in a major feature, right? Look for something small, something more, something that is going to, that has a very significant impact, right? Low efforts, high impact, right? Identify them. It may not be just one, right? Your first sprint could be a combination of quick wins. What are a few things that we can touch, we can change that will have a high impact, right? What if we move this from this end to this end, right? What if we had, a view button to this feature so that internet teams can be able to view these documents instead of just downloading them, right? These are examples of small problems, right, that you can solve that will boost your confidence and also let your development and also your stakeholders trust you. Then we're done with the first part, right? The part where we answer the questions how to do trust. Now we are moving to the second part, right? Communication is huge, right? Communication is like 80% of what you're going to be doing as a product manager, right? So you need to know how to communicate with your development team and also how to manage communication with the development team. So how do you do that? First thing, right? When you are communicating with your development team, it is always good to communicate from the place of problem, not from the place of solution, right? Why are you doing this? Right? Do this. It's simple, right? Your development team should not be doing things, right, or be working on something because, oh, the product manager said we should do it, right? It should be because of the fact that they want to solve a user problem or they want to build value for business, right? That dynamic of, the product manager coming and say, hey, let us create wallets for our customers, right? That is not how it should work, right? A better way to put that would be, hey, I identified a problem after talking to our customers, and I realized that some of them want to keep money on our platform. How do we do that? Now, what you're doing is you are involving everybody in the problem, right? You are creating a problem mindset, right? Which is a very good problem solving tactics, right? And you may be surprised, even though you have a solution in your mind before you bring that question, which is why I said before here, right? Which is why I have not or before solution. You might have something in your mind. You might know in your mind that, of course, it's the wallet that is going to solve that problem, right? But always start with that problem, right? And you may be surprised at the process of bringing that question. You can hear a fantastic, right, and also a solution, that requires minimal efforts to solve that problem, right? And if none of the solutions that come solve that problem, right? And you come and say, hey, what if we build a wallet, right? And everybody comes to a consensus that, okay, yeah, a wallet will solve this problem for us. What you are doing is that you have involved your development team, right, in the entire process from discovery to ideation, and now they are going to take it forward to execution. right? So a great development team, right, build and ships to solve user problems and build for business. That is one of the tactics, to communicate with your product manager. If you want to take them from just being an ordinary development team to a very good and high value development team. The second one is to communicate with data, right? It's very easy, to say things based on assumption or based on, your best guess, right? But in a data-driven team, right, everyone is forced to understand the impact and urgency of the problem you are trying to force. Let's say, for example, a popular way to solve problem would be, hey, we need to add buy now button to our product page instead of just add to cart button, right? You can come to it and say that, right? Or you can use data to communicate that. How do you do that? You can look at your conversion rates and see that all your user analytics, right? Maybe you have you are keeping screen recording sessions, or you are looking at order history, and you see that most of your customers only buy one items each, right? So if I buy one item each, if I'm looking for, let's say, batteries, right? I come on your platform, I search for battery, and I'm looking at battery, right? Why do I have to click on add to cart, right? If I'm just going to buy battery, when I can just click on buy now, right? That is a problem that you want to solve, right? But communicating it in a way that says, hey, all out of the 100 orders we've had last month, all our customers, 90 of those orders were single product orders, right? This means that if we can bring the buy now button to the product page, it will help our customers to quickly make decision and convert, instead of them taking an extra step to add to carts, then go and click on their cards to check out, right? And as I said, what you are doing by that is you are letting everyone understand how impactful, right, solving that problem is going to be for your customer and also for your business too as well. And it makes getting things done easy, right? The last part I want to talk about when it comes to communication is regarding the mode and channel of communication, right? How do you find, how do you communicate with them? What mode and what channel do you do? We are all aspiring product managers or either product managers. And what that means is that a certain process has been given to us where we know that, to communicate requirements, you have to write requirement documentation and also break them down to user stories, right? We have that format in our head. But to successfully communicate, right, you have to explore the best possible option for your team, right? From my experience, I've worked with teams where all they just need from you is your documents. They don't want you to explain to them. They don't want you to hear anything, right? These are mostly maybe very, very senior engineers, right? And also Indians too as well. Indians don't want to talk. They just want to document and like that, right? And I've also worked with teams where no matter the amount of documents you provide, they will not read it, right? But that's a challenge for you as a product manager, right? Because your job is getting things done, right? And a huge part of that job is to properly communicate, right? So it begs the question, how will you handle your team, right? You have to find what works for your team, right? And that is what I always do. right? I start with something. I say, hey, this is not working. Let's try this, right? Yeah, this is not working. Let's try this, right? For some teams, all you need to do is just write the product requirement documents, right? For some teams, you have to do that and also write the user stories and also write the acceptance criteria. If you write user stories without acceptance criteria, you are in trouble. For some teams, they won't even read it, right? They just want to read your user stories, right? Because of their experience, they can get things done, right? You have to find the mode and the channel, right? Do they prefer you chatting with them about your requirements, or do they prefer you talking to them verbally, right, about your requirements or your problems, right? You have to find what works. And sometimes, right, if you know, are lucky or unlucky, to work with a dinosaur team, you have to combine everything to make things work, right? I've worked with a team like that. Talking to them does not work alone. You have to have the documents. Giving them documents alone does not work. You have to talk and explain, right? And doing that alone even does not work. You have to write user stories, right? You have to write the acceptance criteria, right? You have to do everything, right, before you can drive home what you are trying to communicate, right? But the key to that is to find what works and stick to it, regardless of what you know about how to communicate requirements or the templates, right? Sometimes the communication mode can even be the templates of the requirement documentation, right? There are some templates that a developer may not understand. You have to find the templates that works. We don't just want, a table where you list all your user stories and rights requirement there, or do they want business cases to support this, right? You have to find that. You have to stick to it too as well. Yeah. So that is that on communication. Now we are digging deep into the leadership parts and the management parts of development teams, right? And the first thing here is learning to lead with empathy, right? This means you need to create a room, an atmosphere, right? A team with psychological safety, right? You need to acknowledge, those who are doing well, right? You need to acknowledge those who are burnt out, right? You need to acknowledge those who have one or two personal issues, right? And you need to acknowledge those who need time to grow, right? Maybe interns or junior developers. You need to acknowledge the stage they are in their career. You need to acknowledge their way of working. You need to acknowledge the problems they have, right? One thing that I always do, right, is maybe when someone is not doing something well, and if we have a problem, is to actually have conversation about, hey, tell me what is going on, right? What is actually going on? Trust me, you can complain and complain and complain about how this person is getting things done, and you may not get results. But the moment you have that question, you showing concern, genuine concern, right? You have to be genuinely concerned, right, about the person, right? You get the answer, right? You get the answer. I have the personal experience on this while I was at Patricia, right? My most performing team member was a female, right? And I realized that once in a while, she dropped the ball, right? And until one day I said, hey, what is happening? But unfortunately, because I am male, she could not communicate, the what she goes through during that period that she drops the ball or she does not get it on time with me, right? But because I asked the question, because I gave room for that conversation, I was able to understand that, oh, that is the problem. So consciously, I know in my mind that I have to look forward. I have to be very, very attentive to that. Right. And what that means is that when I see that, oh, she's spending more time on something, I assume and acknowledge that, okay, maybe it is the time, it is our time for that month, right? And unfortunately for her, she goes through a lot of pain during that period that affects her, right? But I wouldn't have known if I did not ask a question, right? I would just say, oh, sometimes you perform, sometimes you don't perform, right? And we just conclude that, maybe sometimes she doesn't work, right? Because, and the reason why she was able to share that with me was also because I've created a team where, there's safety for us to have that kind of conversation, right? So it is very important. The second part here is to always fight the good fights, right? If you are going to lead, you have to know how to be decisive, right? And being decisive is not about sticking to one opinion or to one idea or to one process of way of doing things. By being decisive, I'm talking about when you have a decision, when you have a thesis, right, that is backed by actual insights, right, that's backed by something you can verify or you are validated, right, maybe they are qualitative and quantitative data, right, you need to be decisive, right. It's you are going to meet team members who just want to do things their own, right? And how you communicate your decisiveness is taking people, your team member, and sometimes stakeholders too, back to your insights, your data, right? Which is why I said earlier about communication, where data comes in. Data is primary in communication. So you need to know when to fight a good fight. By fighting a good fight, you may not always win. In fact, you may not always win. And that is fine, right? With product managers, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, right? But the most important thing is you should always know how to be decisive and how to take decisive action while being empathetic, while being a good communicator, while being, objective, right? Whenever you have good data, whenever you have strong data or insights to back a particular decision, right, you should stand by it until you can't, right? It is not to stand by it forever, right? Until you can't, because sometimes you have to acknowledge that you can't always win. The last part on how to lead and how to manage development team is to know how to lead with humility, right? We product managers always think that, our job is to find answers to all the questions, our job is to get things done, our job is to solve this problem, right? Sometimes we internalize this, right? And we make it our problem, right? We make it our own sole job, right? But that's not our job. Right? Our job is actually to find answer, not to answer, right? Our job is to find answers to questions, right? Our job is to find solutions to problems, right? Our job is to get things done, right? Not to do things alone, not to, when you hit a wall and, you just have to, because I'm the product manager, I have to find answer to this, right? No, there's something called the wisdom of the crowd, right? It's a very important tactical technique that you can use as a product manager. Whenever you are faced with a problem, you have people around you, right, who are either subject matter or who are either closer to the problem or who at one time or the other experienced this problem before that you can talk to, right? When you are faced with challenges, right, that is when you should be more curious, right? That is when you should sit people down. Hey guys, I have this problem. How do I solve this? Right? You just join the new team where you have to integrate to Paystack, and you don't know how Paystack works. There's no shame in saying, hey guys, based on our customer needs, based on our priority, it is that time that we have to bring payments in. Who here has integrated Paystack? Tell us how it works. Right? There is no shame in doing that. Right? Embrace that curiosity. Right? Ask questions. Right? It makes the job easier if you know a lot of things. Right? But that's not always the case. Right? Sometimes all you need to do is to just bring people together, ask the right questions, talk to the right people, and get things done, which is actually your real job. So I have spent 5 minutes. This is supposed to be for 40 minutes, and this is the end of this conversation. Thank you very much. It's really been an honor to talk about this. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is great. And Vikandi, this is actually thorough. Well done. Thank you. So if you have any question, kindly raise your hand. Any question?
Okay, let me check for the questions.
Okay. All right. Please go
Okay.
ahead. I can see.
I can't see any question here yet. Does someone have any question?
Hello, good evening, Mr. Wale. Can you hear me?
Hi, good evening. Mr. Theophilos. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, Theophilus. That's
okay. Great.
Thank you for this session. I want to also appreciate the management of Enovala. Thank you for this. I had a thrill time listening to you. Thank you very much. Okay, I have two questions. One is related to what we talked about today, and the other one is outside or just a general question. The first question was when you were talking about communicating with customers, communicating with stakeholders, and you mentioned something about dinosaur team.
I didn't hear that. Can you come again?
Okay, you made mention of dinosaur teams. You said something about when you're working with dinosaur teams. Can you throw more light? Are there types of teams we should know about? Okay, so what does a dinosaur team is? What is it about? So I don't know if I can ask question number 2.
Yes, you can ask question number 2.
Okay. As a product manager, whether you're new, whether you're an experienced one, what do you think should be the person's main interest between getting new clients and focusing on retailing old? What do you think should be the focus of product manager? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Let me start with your first question. Let me mention the question again so that we are on the same page. You want to know what I meant by dinosaur teams when I made reference to that. And your question, the second question, is to know which one should product manager prioritize, whether to retain old customers or to acquire new customers. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
So to answer the first question, what I meant by dinosaur team, I'm referring to a very rare and strange team, right? Trust me, they are different. As I mentioned, one of the most interesting about development teams is the fact that you are going to meet diverse characters, right? All my years of working in products, no team is the same, right? You have a team where you have 5 people and only one person is actually delivering value and the others are just doing nothing, right? You can have a team of maybe, where everybody, wants to do things differently, right? And yeah, so what I mean by dinosaur team are like very rare, extremely rare team. And I'm trying to remember the section of which I made mention to that. Can you remind me? So maybe I can reiterate on what I was trying to communicate at that end.
Okay, I think you were talking about communicating with team members.
Okay.
It was about communication.
Communication, yes.
Yes.
So, yes, exactly. So sometimes you have to, we can have a weird team, like a very rare and weird team, where giving them documents, writing everything on Jira is not going to work unless you talk to them one-on-one. Like you break things down as simple and as slow as possible, right? You have to do a lot of communication. You have to reiterate. You have to show them examples. You have to even give them wireframes, right, before they get things done, right? You have to maybe draw them in flowcharts before they get things done. Right? Sometimes you can have this dinosaur thing where you have to use all the modes and all the channel of communication to communicate. Right? And one of the great stuff being a product manager is identifying and knowing these things and being able to apply all the possible, communication mode or channel, right, that you can use to get things across to them. Does that answer your first question?
Mr. Wale. Yes.
Oh, great.
Yes.
So moving to your second question. It's a very interesting question, and one thing I would like to clarify is that as a product manager, your job is not to think about, oh, should I, your job is not to make that decision, right? Should I prioritize this or that? Your job is to use all the available resources, whether by knowing or being involved in your company's strategy, right? Knowing your company's goal in a particular period, right? Your job is to use all these materials, all this information you have to make the best decision and to prioritize. My job as a product manager is not to say, hey, you know what, I feel like, we should start going after new customers as against return customers, right? The real is knowing where your company or the business is at a particular time and implementing solutions, right, for the particular phase, right? For example, your job we are now in Q2, right? Your company's goal for Q2 will be acquisition, right? If your company's goal for Q2 is acquisition in Q2, is acquisition in Q2, that means that you prioritize acquiring new customers, right? It doesn't mean that you need to satisfy old customers, but you will need to prioritize that. Second, a second reason, a second ingredient in that system would be cost, right? What is the cost of retaining old customer to your company compared to the cost of acquiring new customer, right? At the place where your company is, are you in the place where you can invest, right? That significant higher amount of money to bring new customer, or just focus on old customer, right? As I said, the most important part of the job is, knowing the questions to ask and knowing what to use to answer the question. So did I answer your question correctly, Nicholas?
Yes, Mr. Wale, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I see that Caleb's hand is up. Hi, Caleb. Okay.
Okay, Victor. Victor, back to you. Your hand is up.
Yeah.
All right. Good
Thank
evening,
you.
Wale.
Hi, good evening.
Hello. Good.
Hi.
Yeah. I want to really thank you so much for this call. I want to sincerely appreciate you. I I could recall vividly way back when he was in Patricia. I never knew that that's what you go through every day. When you work with Aziz, before you left,
Oh,
you handed over to
who am I
Aziz.
talking to?
You are talking with Victor.
Victor, which
Yes,
department?
you
Was it
know,
gift card or payments?
yeah, operations.
Operations. Oh,
Yes,
interesting. Oh, nice to meet you here.
it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
way
you
back we
work
used
with
to,
Aziz when I left.
yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
you,
Yeah.
you did a whole lot for Vaunt way back, that we never knew. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for all you do, all you did then. I want to ask a question. I know you may not be aware that I have transitioned into product. I have not
Yeah.
reached out to you for a while. So
Okay.
yeah, in a situation whereby you are in a team, you're a newbie, for instance, and you are trying to get one or two things from the OGs, and probably the OGs is not trying to give you that information. They're trying to hoard information from you.
Yeah.
The OGs, particularly in the team, and just trying to hoard the information from you.
Yeah.
So in that state or in that situation, what am I going to do? I know that I have other people that I can still reach out to, but in
Yeah.
such a case now, how am I going to handle it so that it will not affect the job and the business? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. I have a follow-up question to clarify very well. This information you are referring to, are you referring to a product data or just a neutral information about something, right, regarding your work? Is it data? Is it analytics? What kind of information is this?
Data.
Data. Okay, great. So the first step, right, would be for you to do a sort of self-reflection, or maybe sort of investigation to know the why, right? That's the most important question that you have to ask. Why? There are a lot of different managers. As I said, I mean, in a workplace, you find people with diverse characters, right? The why could be, oh, because maybe they feel like, oh, you can't handle this data, or maybe they feel like giving you this data would be, a loss of power on their hand, maybe sort of power play, or maybe they are just naturally, not good people, right? You need to know that first. You need to know the why first, right? So let's take, for example, the why is maybe because they don't trust you enough. Like, maybe he's not experienced enough to have access to this data, right? Maybe because they don't trust you enough, right? There are two ways to handle that, right? This first way is for you to accept, right, and say, they don't trust me, so you know what, there's nothing I can do, right? The second way is if you want to learn and grow as a product manager, and you see this as a stumbling a block for you, right? The second way is to win their trust. I know this conversation is not about winning the trust of people higher than you, but a trick, right, that you can use, that I've always used also, to win the trust of people who I report to or people who are in higher positions than me, is to go to them. Let me give you an example. You could say, hey, I am willing to grow in my career. I've been doing this so far. And you have to be doing well in what you're doing before you have this conversation or before you send this email or anything, right? Preferably a conversation, right? I've been doing so well in my career. I want to do more, right? And what do you think I can do for you, right? To help you and the product gets to the next stage, right? This is something that I've done in my career before that worked for me, and it is what a lot of people people recommend to as well, right? But the first step is that you should be doing whatever you are doing very well before you go into this conversation, right? If you are not doing what you're doing currently very well, and you go to the conversation, right, you will not get to the next stage where they will assign more responsibilities to you or give you access to more things, right? For example, data, right? You have to be doing what you're doing currently well, and you have to be able to know that their answer, right, to that question is yes, yeah, you are doing well, right? And sometimes we may be surprised. No matter how bad managers are, they want to do less work. They want to run less about things, right? So someone coming to them to willingly say, hey, how can I help you, right? How can I take some burden off your head? I see that you are doing a lot. Would be a way to build a good relationship and build trust, right? And whatever they give you to do, right? Another trick is to not say no to that. You don't have the option to say, oh, no, I wasn't thinking of that. I thought maybe you give me this. Whatever they give you to do it very well, and they will come back to you. In fact, that data or that information that you think you need, they will really give it to you and say, hey, you know what? There's this problem that I have to solve, and I don't want to do that now. Can you help me solve it? Right? And they can give you and transfer that problem. Because no matter how bad or how crazy someone is, what I know is everybody wants to relieve the pressure and the stress on their head, right? So if your question and your offer, takes some of the problems they have away from them, right? There is a 90% possibility that they are going to give you what you want. Does that answer your question, Victor?
Yes, thank you so much. Well, I appreciate.
Great. Yeah, you can reach out to me. We can talk more. I'm interested.
All right, thank you.
That's interesting.
All right.
That's interesting. All right. So Nat, your hand was up. Nathaniel, please, do you have a question?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Wale. I
Hi, good
think you
evening.
answered part of. Uh, I think you answered some of the questions I want to ask, but one of them is like you working with engineers and they're not giving you the results you want at the particular time, and having explored all channels of communication via call,
Yeah.
messages, and try to know what the situation of things with them, and also you all the documents being required for the job is being provided for them, but yet you are not getting what you want. What do you do in such a situation?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. I wanted to include part of that, but I figured there won't be enough time to, tackle and go into conflict resolution. I mean, that's a huge, topic on its own, like how to manage problems like this even before they start, right? So the first thing is one, as you mentioned, you have to be sure that you have done everything possible from your end, right? You've communicated properly. You let them understand how impactful whatever they want to do is to the business and to customers. Right? You have to be sure that you have done that very well. If you haven't, go back and start all over again, right? Unfortunately, we have one of the jobs where we cannot complain too much, right? We have one of the jobs where we have to do our best, right, to get things done, right? And when you are sure that you have done everything on your end to make sure that you communicate properly to them, and it doesn't work, the next step, right, is to now find out why it's not working, right? And you'll be surprised. I've met engineers who I thought were not serious about work, right? Who I thought they don't just want to do things. But the real problem was that they can't do it. They don't know it, right? They do not have the skill sets to do it. So instead of, admitting that, oh, you know what, I can't do this thing, I'm blocked, I don't know how to get out of this, right? They will just keep fighting with it, and you would think that, hey, this person is not getting things done, right? But the real problem is that they can't do it. They do not have a skill set to do it, right? And you meet other engineers where they have the skill set to do it, they can do it, but they do not actually prioritize, the company, right? We are in an economy now where people have to have multiple jobs to survive and meet their financial goal. And unfortunately, your company might be at the bottom of their contribution of their overall weekly, financial monthly financial goal, right? The company might be paying lesser, right?
Wow.
And what that means is that he will deprioritize whatever you're asking him to do, regardless of how skillful and how good he is, right? So the real trick is knowing the why, right? Once you know the why, or you can find out the why, you'll be able to solve the problem. And an example of solving the problem where maybe you realize that this person doesn't take us serious is to have a conversation with them, right? First step, always have a conversation with them, right? I would advise you to do this one-on-one, right? Invite them to the call them, like, hey, let's talk, what's up? Right? What is actually the real challenge, right? You may not hear the truth from them, but you are going to get some things from them, right? And you are going to know whether things are going to change or not, right? But if you leave that conversation with the impression that things are not going to change, trust me, that is why you as a product manager, that is where you as a product manager need to ask for help. And by asking for help, I mean, you have to involve someone. I found out some years ago that engineers respect someone who is technically superior to them, right? Maybe an engineering manager or a CTO, right? Sometimes if I don't want to worry myself about the problem, I just say, hey, I just start the head up. Hey, I have this problem. Can you help me talk to this person, right? And the decision of whether that person still remains in your team, right, or that person adjusts, right, has now been moved from a product problem to an administrative problem, right? If there are issues that you can manage and the person is going to change, it's fine. But honestly, there are some situations that there's nothing you can do as a product manager than to put your hands up and call the next person who reports you. Hey, this person is not delivering value. I have tried this. Always communicate that. I've done this. I've tried this, and be genuine about that. So about trying to solve the problem, right? Because no matter how bad or how poorly they behave, we are humans, right? We know someone who genuinely, right, wants to solve problem for us, right, or wants to help us, or wants to know what is going on, right? So you also need to be genuine about trying to do that. Then another thing that I do, sorry if I'm taking your time. Another thing I do when I see patterns like this is what I called positive reinforcements, right? Because I spend a lot of time to know my team members, I know who delivers, who does not deliver, I know who is doing well and who is not doing well, right? I positively reinforce, the person that is dropping the ball a lot. So when they do a little thing, I appreciate them, right? And trust me, it has worked for me a lot of times. Right? Sometimes the reason why this person is not delivering is because he has fucked up so much that he's already used to it. Like, yeah, he has messed this up so much that he's already used to it. So he doesn't be angry, he doesn't care. But whenever I do something, no matter how small it is, I appreciate them for it. And that always make them want to do more. Trust me, I can't mention companies right now, right? Because I don't want people to know. But I've met a lot of developers who were, nonchalant to what we were doing, and later they grew interest, because for the first time in a long time they've been on the team, someone is acknowledging whatever they're doing, right? And that sometimes work magic too as well. So, Nathaniel, I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, please. You have. Thank you for that.
Great, thank you.
All right, that's a beautiful one there. Thank you so much for your feedbacks. And I believe there's no more question. So I think I'll say in a nutshell, we've learned about being a problem solver first, knowing our team members are essential, establishing the clear communication channels, knowing our product, our customer more than anyone else, very key. Fostering collaboration and fighting the good fight, that interests me, and leveraging on the strengths of your team members. Also, thank you for your practical advice, Wale. I believe everyone is better equipped. Yeah, I believe everyone is better equipped for this, your point. And I believe you've instilled that confidence for them to tackle the challenges ahead with clarity and determination. So I would say we truly appreciate your time and your expertise. So everyone, please, one more time with your emojis, show some appreciation once again, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I have some announcements. I am search for 2+ managers. One with a strong background and good, and I'm in it now. I am building a new team, and I need people who have strong background in any of these two roles. Maybe you've been a former marketing person, right, and you are transitioning to products, right, or maybe you are a former analyst, want to transition to products, right. Please reach out to my team. I would love to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Nice opportunity. Please, guys, go grab yours. All right.
So thank you.
All
I
right.
could hear myself. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Wale.
Bye.
He has left.